Welcome to Club E. Hi, I'm Rick Brimacombe of Brimacombe and Associates. I am your architect of business growth, and I will work with you to unlock your potential and amplify the scale of your company. Today, we're talking about getting ahead of change, building sustainable, profitable, strategic advantage. I want to thank our sponsors, Irish Titan, an e-commerce and web development firm, Highland Bank, a locally owned community bank, Romaine Berg, a digital marketing agency, Schwegman, Lumberg, Woosner, an intellectual property law firm, and Voyager U, a catalytic gateway for building your own independent work life. All right, please hit the subscribe button. That allows us to let you know when we are going live, as well as deliver better content to you. You also can catch Clubby on your favorite podcast platform, Apple, Google, Spotify, and many others. With that, I would like to introduce today's guest. Welcome, Linda Ruhland, founding leader of Success Authorities. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you, Rick. My pleasure to be here today.
Well, it's a pleasure for us to have you. I know that we talked a little bit in person last week at our first Clubby in-person gathering post COVID lockdown. So it's great to see you face to face last week, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Yes, that was really wonderful. It was a great, refreshing opportunity to be with people, and I think we all felt the same. It just was so nice to see faces again.
Absolutely. The whole face, not just the
Yeah,
top half.
yeah. In the presence of fellow entrepreneurs.
Yes, absolutely. And Linda, for folks to get a hold of you, your email address is Ruhland, RUHLAND at successauthorities.com, correct?
That is correct.
All right. So again, Ruhland at successauthorities.com. You can also get Linda's contact info in the comments field if you are in YouTube. Okay, Linda, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your firm, and the various things that you're up to.
Oh boy, we only have a few minutes here, but I've been in business for better than 30 years. And throughout that period of time, I've held a lot of different positions, both in the corporate environment and in the entrepreneurial environment. I've been a business owner more than once. I have been an employee in the field more than once. So I've kind of looked at it from all sorts of different angles. And I have to tell you, from all my experience in that area, I really prefer and respect and admire the work that entrepreneurs do for us and for our communities and for our country.
Wow. And on top of all of that work stuff and the being supportive of entrepreneurs, you also, as I understand, are a dog lover. Tell us a little bit about your dogs.
Well, the dogs keep me sane. They keep me realizing that there's something more important to life, and rather than just getting, pretty much obsessed with problem solving and so forth, and being a good consultant and a good business leader. Yeah, they keep me human.
All right. Well, everybody that is a pet lover in our audience will want to know what kind of dog and what are their names.
Okay. Well, the neighborhood knows Gigi and Pepper. They're two little female dogs, about the same height. I bought them a few years ago, knowing that I wanted something that was small enough that I could pick up if they got into too much trouble, and grab them by the scruff of the neck. One's a Shih Tzu Bichon, and the other one's a Peekapoo, and they're
Right.
black and white and black.
All right. Well, just by coincidence, we had a Peekapoo when I was a kid growing up. So
Yeah,
very,
they're fun dogs.
very cute, fun, loving dogs. Yep, I agree. 100%.
Mischievous too.
A little bit, yes.
Yeah.
A little bit, yes. So you started in college and got degrees in theater and art. So you somehow made a transition to the business world from that. I'm curious a little bit about that, and then talk about how theater and art and your background in the arts has helped you become a better business person.
Okay. Well, to begin with, Success Authorities is all about helping businesses grow and prosper and really become sustainable long term, especially given the fact that we all kind of learn by the seat of our pants. Back when I was a kid, which, back before I even knew what theater was all about, I grew up in a very entrepreneurial environment. My mom had a beauty salon on one end of the house. In the backyard, my dad had an excavating business, and then across the driveway, he had a feed and seed store. So everywhere I looked, there was business going on, from the kitchen table to the hallway across from my bedroom. Something was happening with regard to business. So going to college, I probably, for the most part, wanted to get away from that. Can you imagine? And I had fallen in love with both art and theater, and I loved the collaboration and the camaraderie, and the fact that you could create something from nothing. And of course, my folks wanted me to go into business, so the rebel that I was pursued the arts. And unfortunately, and I don't know if it's changed today or not, but the arts don't tend to feel that it's important to learn too much about surviving in the arts. So the best advice they give you is go find yourself a job and audition a lot. Well, my love in the theater arts had to do with directing and creating a theater troupe, which I did. But of course, I didn't know how to cash flow that or create revenue from that. So like everybody else in that world, I got a job, only to discover that, lo and behold, most of what I loved about theater, the working together, the problem solving, the unknown, was right there in the midst of my office environment. And so to this day, the big aha that I took away from that was that business is an art. And I think it's more obvious today than ever before.
I agree with you. And I've often told people that my work is art just on a different canvas. And so I agree with you. I agree with you on that. And that's a great perspective. And it's also good that you showed some independence and decided to do your own thing, to do college, and that you didn't have to do it necessarily how your parents had, but then also neat that you came back and gravitated towards that.
Yes, thank you. And actually, my business degree was 20 years later. I pursued my MBA because you get the eyebrow or the long stare or the every time you happen to mention, at least in my case, happen to mention that my background was in art, and here I am advising you as a business owner.
Yep. So we started this talk with the COVID lockdown and how we had been at a clubby event last week and talk face to face. As we are now emerging out of the lockdown and getting back to quote normal, whatever that looks like, and obviously normal is going to be different going forward. But as we come out of COVID here, what can business leaders do to recover faster?
Okay. One of my colleagues, we're a team of, I'm going to say, 4 full founding members and then a couple of fractional members. Ron Lehman talks about and does a presentation on a program called permanent whitewater. That's a term that he has borrowed from Peter Vail, if you're familiar with him. Wrote a couple of books. One of them is Learning as a Way of Being. And permanent whitewater, as he describes it, is, if you can imagine whitewater rafting, where you've got all you can do to stay afloat, and life is pretty unpredictable, and there are rocks everywhere. So how do you stay afloat in that? And especially as you move down that river, how much faster that rapid whitewater takes place? Well, Bill uses that as a metaphor for business and change. And permanent whitewater in business is a combination of compression, confusion, and competition. And also, it has a lot to do with the fact that we're moving faster in our business cycles. We are dealing with a lot of messiness in terms of the web, right? That's where the confusion comes in. People have a lot of clutter in their lives. And what happens is where you used to have more time and attention with somebody, because of that clutter, people are more dismissive. And you may have a perfect solution for somebody, but that solution isn't seen because it's lost in the clutter. And the competition starts to just really grow because you've got online competition, you've got competition for your customers, you've got competition for your talent. So recovering in this environment is somewhat of a challenge, to say the very least. And those who do well are those who are prepared for change. They're change ready, we like to call it. And those who are, hanging on to that raft and trying to make it down the river with as little risk as possible will find themselves having a harder time of it.
So, compression, confusion, competition, a lot of things pulling at business leaders, whether it's those three things or other things that get in the way. What do you think hinder the business leaders the most from orchestrating a faster recovery?
In terms of recovering faster, you really have to look at what's happening within your organization. And that's not just within the walls of your organization, but beyond the walls of your organization. And I like to compare it to what, if you've heard of Ed Catmull, he was the president of Pixar. He talks about looking at things with a beginner's mind, because what's happening here is you're having to lead through ambiguity. None of us knows what the future brings, but like coming out of this big COVID storm, we got hit with a whirlwind of change that we couldn't control, that we couldn't anticipate, and that we had no control over when it was going to end. And hopefully that end is close in sight if it hasn't happened already, but it's after the storm. What's working? What's not working? What hasn't changed? And what is not going to be the way it ever was? You've got to take a look inside of your four walls and say, what's different here? And how can we, as an organization, pull together and make something wonderful out of this? Because those who are ready for change see change as an opportunity. And in fact, some of my colleagues have been working with people who not only got through COVID successfully, they actually did better.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I would agree that I've seen some of my portfolio companies and CEO coaching clients come out of COVID here in a stronger position than they went in. So I agree with you on that. One of the words, and it ties in with your C's that I wrote down, just a reminder for myself, is curiosity. Folks that have curiosity, I think, benefit. And how you, like you said, you might see change as an opportunity that comes from, I think, being open-minded and curious about what's happening in front of them. When I say the word curiosity, what comes to mind for you?
Well, that harkens back to my roots in the world of creativity, right? And what curiosity turns into for me, and for what my team really embraces, is the idea of what we call change innovation. And change innovation begins with looking at what you have in terms of your tool set, so that when you see something that takes place, we talked about a little bit about ambiguity. How do you pull together the resources that you have within your organization, the processes, and along with your customers' wants and needs and their challenges, to make something, to create something that's really positive and forward moving.
And another C word, change. You've mentioned that a couple of times. What do you think is the secret for business leaders to manage change?
Well, the big secret is soon going to not be a secret anymore, and that has to do again with permanent whitewater. The secret about managing change is that you can't manage it. There is no managing change. Can you imagine trying to manage a gigantic thunderstorm, a hurricane? You can get through it, but you have one of two choices in regard to change. You can either get ahead of it or you can get caught by it. And the way you know which way you stand is, are you putting out fires or are you creating opportunity, applying that curiosity in this time of change post-COVID?
Hmm. So, a lot of change is opportunity, but also a lot of uncertainty. So, how does one maintain their strategic advantage during times of change and uncertainty?
Strategic advantage is, it's one of those terms with a lot of syllables, but strategy is not something anymore, never was, but much less today, about a static uh, statement on a wall that you pay homage to. Strategy is a process, strategy is dynamic. And when you talk about having a dynamic strategy, we're talking about creating value for customers in your target market. And you can imagine that if you've been going through change and just look around, everybody else has been too. What are the changes? What are the challenges that you are seeing that your customers are faced with? And depending upon how you can access your customers and how close you are with those customers, the sooner you're going to see and find opportunity in those challenges that they face that you can uniquely solve as an organization.
Hmm. I like it. I like it. All right. So, change, uncertainty, and crisis. Surviving a crisis is one thing. We're on the other side of the COVID lockdown. Some businesses have been decimated. Some people have lost family members or friends. So, it definitely has been crisis mode for the year. But
Mhm.
how can somebody grow and thrive and not just survive the crisis?
That's where we see and like to talk about the opportunity within organizations. So if you're really interested in being change ready, or like we like to call it, being change innovators, you want to make sure that your processes and your people can work together with one another. And that means that you have a culture that will actually respond to what's going on and feel safe in an environment where you're not knowing what's going to happen next. That takes a culture that's supportive of one another. It takes a culture that has bought into the direction that your organization is and understands and embraces the wants and needs of their customers.
Hmm. I like it, and agree with what you're sharing with everybody here.
Yeah.
A word that comes to mind, and again, this goes to us talking some last week and me knowing a little bit about your practice, but synchronize. What does it mean for folks to synchronize? And folks, I mean business leaders, to synchronize their people, their systems, and their strategies.
The combination of human and strategic performance working together. So people aren't going to work together unless they really understand who they are and how they fit within your organization. They also need to understand what the direction that organization is taking. And they also need to understand where everybody is headed. I like the analogy that Jim Collins uses, getting the right people on the right seat in the bus, that's wonderful. It's important. But does that bus operate very well? In other words, is it a well-functioning, well-oiled bus that's going to take you where you need to go? Does the bus have the directions it needs in terms of where it wants to arrive, where the destination happens to be? If something goes wrong with that bus, how equipped and how capable are the people within that bus to work together to fix the bus, to keep it rolling? The same thing with whitewater. Are we able to get down that river of change without panicking, without relying on what we knew, and as opposed to relying on what we knew? Start to learn what's next, and how capable are we as an organization to learn and support each other as we learn and grow.
So, talked a little bit there about synchronizing people system strategies. You talked a little bit about kind of framing that up and providing some context. Talk a little bit about what it looks like to not be synchronized, and maybe give a few more examples on what that looks like relative to the people systems and strategies.
Yeah, it sounds, you're right, Rick. It sounds good to hear what works, right? It makes sense. It's simple, but simple isn't easy. Well, if you're dealing with things like lack of sales, poor performance, poor outcomes, whether it's equipment failure or service quality problems, if you're dealing with attrition, those are all symptoms of something that has a deeper root to it in terms of lack of synchronization. And what we feel, and again, you could slice and dice this a dozen different ways, but there are 5 areas that we focus on. We talked about strategy. We talked a little bit about culture and how important culture is, that we need to have the people in league with one another to support the strategy. Leaders. Now, your leaders in a time of change are going to be very, very different in terms of their skill set than a leader who works during, in something that's more of a functional, predictable environment. A leader in change needs to know how to both anticipate what change is going to do to the individuals in their group, as Ron likes to put it, change regardless of whether or not it's corporate or industry-wide. Change is always very personal, and we all go through a process of change that the leader has to be aware of, or things will, start to break down. We also need to know how to innovate. So in other words, if you're going to see opportunity and create from that opportunity, how do you bring that into your organization and work with it together to take it to something that's profitable and deliverable? And then finally, we need to go from knowing to learning. So how do you, as a leader, assist people with learning, understanding that learning isn't necessarily the kind of learning that you do in a formal education environment, but learning on the fly, learning by the seat of your pants, learning the entrepreneurial way? How do you facilitate that within your organization? Those are the tools that you have to address the symptoms that we just discussed earlier that have to do with attrition, inertia, poor performance, lack of deliveries, and complications along the way.
Let's take a little bit of a left-hand turn here. Talked about these 5 areas that you work in, but maybe just real quickly, and then we'll get back to some of the questions on our topic today. But just tell the audience a little bit about the types of clients that you work with and the types of engagements that you think are a good fit for your firm.
Okay, sure. We work with, let's just put it this way. If you have a team and you want that team to work together better, more efficiently, and you are, concerned about, the growth and progress, and not just having a profitable business. I think that's a metric that we're all after, but really, really seeing the best performance possible out of the business that you have envisioned. That's who we want to talk to. We realize that we aren't for everybody, but we look to the people who aspire to be the very best that they can, and really embrace, their customers, and want to be unique and a leader in their customers' industries.
All right, that's helpful. Gives a little context to, or more context to our talk today. So we've been talking about business leaders trying to improve and, like you say, be all they can be, et cetera. Talk a little bit about the one thing that a business leader can do to accelerate their business starting now. In fact, I think back to when I got Club E going in 2007. My concept was to have people learn something over the lunch hour, go back to their office and do something different that afternoon to make their business better. So actionable content. What can business leaders do right now to accelerate their business and make it more successful?
Well, the first thing I would like to encourage business leaders to do is to wipe that blackboard in the back of their mind that says, this is what my business did, and this is how we've made money and progress over the last, let's say, 3 to 5 years. And say, as I mentioned earlier, Ed Catmull's words, look at your environment with a beginner's eyes. Take a look at what within your organization is working and can move forward. And then take a look at where your most prevalent problems are. And then within those problems, take a look at what opportunities come from them, because those problems have another side to them. And those problems today are probably not yours alone, but more than likely problems faced either by your industry or your customers. And know that within your organization, if you have the right culture, if you have the right camaraderie, and you have the ability to listen to one another and tap into that customer base, you've got the solution. And it's probably been there for a while.
Well, if it has been, thanks for helping try to draw it out, because some of us are maybe not quite as in tune with what's going on, or maybe feeling a little more stuck, or what have you. So, I'm curious, and I touched on a little earlier about the art and the theater and the business. Obviously, then you said the family, and I've often thought that folks that are entrepreneurial had some sort of role model, and it sounds like your parents were wonderful role models for your business career. But as you look back over your career, was there some lesson that you learned that was very valuable that you wished you would have learned sooner?
Absolutely, Rick. Back in my 30s, early 30s, I remember standing up in a chamber event, accepting an award for Best Entrepreneur of the Year. And I received that award gratefully. But I remember going home thinking to myself, I have no idea where I'm going. Okay, it's been great getting here. We've accomplished a lot, but I wish I had a roadmap. I wish I had an idea of where this is going to take me, because I don't know what to do next. And back then I didn't have the reach to the advisors, to the mentors that I needed at the time. And I just wished at today that everybody can know what I didn't know then, and that there are people out there that have been and walked the walk that you have not walk maybe at this point in time. And that there, if you look for them and if you grow your circles around mentors and teachers and lifelong learners, that you can make that pathway easier and you can make that transition more sustainable, more successful. But it's the people you know and grow with as much as what you've acquired over time. And learning by the seat of the pants is the hard way to go.
Is some of that maybe, and I know in the past you've been involved with the National Association of Women Business Owners, is some of that interest and desire in this area come through with things that you had done there?
Yes, absolutely. The collaboration, anywhere where you have a network, your network, for example, there are people there that we all understand that the heart and soul of the entrepreneur has that creative um, desire to build something better. And I think the reward is mutual when somebody can, if you can help yourself, that's great. But if you can help one another and somebody else along their path, that reward feels just as good.
So as you think about our talk today, we've covered a lot of ground, some interesting things. Appreciate you sharing your perspectives. What's one key takeaway that you'd like the audience to bring with them after listening to our talk? And it might be something you've already said, or maybe something we didn't get to, but what's the one key takeaway you'd like everybody to bring with them?
Go back, especially if you have a team. Sit down with your team members and ask them, what do they see as the biggest challenge and simultaneously opportunity, and ask them to start sharing with one another. Because I think the idea, even if you don't come up with anything that's groundbreaking, the idea that you start to communicate with one another and practice the art of collaboration, that's going to be an important tool set going forward.
Okay, I like it. And then Linda, remind everybody how to get a hold of you if somebody in the listening audience would like to do so.
Sure. Again, my email is Ruhland, my last name, Ruhland, at successauthorities.com. That's authorities plural. And you can always take a look at our website, successauthorities.com. And there's a number of ways to contact us there.
And then I would imagine, given your interests in mentorship and such, that if somebody wanted to reach out to you, whether it was about business or some other matters, I'm guessing that you'd be happy to speak to them.
More than happy. Myself, or if one of the members of my team, Ron is an expert in the whole idea of culture, Ed on strategy, Jane on purposeful leadership. Any one of us is available just through, again, the emails or reaching out to us. And however that works for you as an individual or with your leadership team, we welcome the opportunity to chat.
Okay, all right. And any last items you'd like to share with the Club E community?
Well, just Rick, that I really appreciate the fact that you have built an organization like this, and that clearly it speaks for itself in terms of the numbers of entrepreneurs that have built this. But I think that the more we as a community grow together, the stronger that we become, both as organizations and as just a network of both support and success.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the kind words. I appreciate that. And I know that the Club E community is grateful for you sharing your insights today, and look forward to having you back and looking forward to seeing you again at the next in-person session.
Same here. Looking forward to it, Rick. Thanks.
Thank you, Linda.